When liberal journalist Mark Reynolds took to social media to make a public remark about Barron Trump, he likely thought it would be just another day of stirring controversy. Known for his outspoken critiques of the Trump family, Reynolds made a comment that quickly gained traction, igniting a firestorm of reactions. The comment in question? A snide remark about Barron's height and demeanor, suggesting that he was aloof and out of place at a recent public appearance. While many shrugged it off as another partisan jab, others saw it as an unnecessary attack on the son of a former president, someone who has largely stayed out of the political spotlight. What happened next, however, was something no one expected. Instead of engaging in a war of words or having his family respond on his behalf, Barron Trump himself addressed the situation in a way that left critics and supporters alike in stunned silence. Rather than firing back with anger or sarcasm, Barron reportedly made a statement that was both poised and disarmingly mature. When asked about Reynolds' remark during a private conversation that later surfaced, he allegedly responded with a calm demeanor, saying, "People will always have something to say, but I choose to focus on the things that actually matter." His response, though simple, carried a weight that resonated deeply with people on both sides of the political spectrum. It was a rare glimpse into the character of someone who has spent most of his life under intense scrutiny, yet has largely remained a private figure. Social media reactions were swift and telling. Many users, including those who don't support his father's politics, praised Barron for his maturity and grace under pressure. "This is how you handle criticism, with class," one tweet read. Another user commented, "Regardless of political views, this is an 18-year-old who just put a seasoned journalist to shame." Meanwhile, the backlash against Reynolds was swift. Even some of his own colleagues in the media criticized him for targeting a young man who has never been directly involved in political discourse. The journalist later issued a follow-up tweet, attempting to clarify his comment. "It was never my intention to attack Barron personally," he wrote. "I was merely making an observation." But the damage had already been done. Sponsors of his media outlet distanced themselves, and some even called for disciplinary action against him. The incident also reignited discussions about whether children of politicians, regardless of party affiliation, should be considered off-limits for public attacks. Even people who had previously been vocal critics of the Trump family found themselves defending Barron. Liberal commentator Lisa Roberts remarked, "This should be a lesson to all of us. If we claim to be better than the people we criticize, we shouldn't stoop to the level of attacking someone who's done nothing wrong." Interestingly, Barron Trump himself didn't engage any further. He didn't release an official statement, nor did he acknowledge the issue beyond his initial comment. His silence, in contrast to the media frenzy around the situation, spoke volumes. Many noted how his approach mirrored that of his mother, Melania Trump, who often chose a more reserved and dignified response to public criticism. Some even speculated that Barron's handling of the situation suggested he had inherited a level of media savvy from his father, though without the bombastic style. As the days passed, the media cycle moved on, but the impression Barron left remained. He had turned an attack into an opportunity to show wisdom beyond his years, proving that sometimes the most powerful response is not outrage or retaliation, but quiet confidence. Reynolds, on the other hand, faced lingering consequences. His credibility took a hit, and while he wasn't fired, sources reported that he was urged to be more careful with his words moving forward. Ultimately, this incident served as a reminder that in a time of constant division and political sniping, there's still room for dignity and class. And in this case, it came from someone many least expected, an 18-year-old who, despite the public scrutiny, continues to rise above the noise. When the remark first surfaced, many assumed it would be brushed off as just another mean-spirited comment in an already divisive media landscape. After all, public figures and their families, especially those tied to politics, are no strangers to criticism. But something about this particular situation struck a nerve with people across the board. For years, Barron Trump has been one of the most elusive figures in American political circles. Unlike his older siblings who have actively engaged in media and politics, Barron has remained largely private. His rare public appearances have only fueled speculation about his personality, future ambitions, and how he handles growing up in such an intense spotlight. That's precisely why Reynolds' comment felt like a low blow. While political figures are fair game for scrutiny, attacking a young man who has never made public statements about policy, elections, or his father's administration seemed unnecessary, even to those who are no fans of the Trump family. As the controversy continued to gain traction, some began comparing Barron's treatment to that of other presidential children. People recalled how Chelsea Clinton faced relentless scrutiny as a teenager, only to emerge as an accomplished and respected public figure. Others pointed out that Sasha and Malia Obama, despite growing up in the White House, were largely shielded from personal attacks. So why was Barron being treated differently? Was it simply because of his last name, or was there something deeper at play? These were the questions many were asking as the backlash against Reynolds intensified. Interestingly, some political analysts argued that the attack on Barron was a symptom of the broader political climate, one where civility has been eroded and no one, not even the children of public figures, is spared from partisan warfare. Yet Barron's response showed that he wasn't interested in playing that game. He could have easily lashed out, issued a sharp-tongued response, or even let his father handle the situation. But instead, he chose restraint. This decision, whether calculated or simply a reflection of his personality, had an unexpected effect. It left his critics with nothing to latch onto. By refusing to engage in the mudslinging, Barron disarmed his detractors completely. As the days went on, more prominent figures weighed in. Even those who frequently criticize his father, like late-night hosts and liberal commentators, found themselves in the uncomfortable position of having to acknowledge Barron's poise. Say what you want about his dad, but the kid handled that way better than most adults, one commentator admitted. At the same time, conservative voices rallied around Barron, using the incident as an example of media bias and hypocrisy. Many pointed out that if the roles were reversed, if a conservative journalist had mocked the child of a Democratic president, the outrage would have been deafening. Despite all the media noise, Barron continued with his life as if nothing had happened. There were no social media rants, no damage control interviews, just silence. And in that silence, he sent a powerful message. It wasn't just a moment of personal dignity. It was a rare instance of rising above the chaos, proving that sometimes the best response to hate is no response at all. As the controversy continued to unfold, many began questioning the deeper implications of Reynolds' attack. Was this just a careless comment, or did it reflect a broader trend in media and political discourse? In today's climate, where personal attacks often overshadow meaningful discussions, Barron Trump's reaction stood out as a stark contrast to the usual cycle of outrage and retaliation. Journalists and media personalities are often expected to uphold a certain level of professionalism, even when critiquing public figures. However, Reynolds' remark about Barron seemed to cross an unspoken line, one that even some of his fellow journalists weren't willing to ignore. Several prominent media figures took to social media to call him out, reminding their followers that attacking the children of politicians, regardless of party affiliation, is never acceptable. One veteran journalist tweeted, "If we condemn attacks on Chelsea Clinton, Sasha and Malia Obama, or Amy Carter, then we should apply the same standard to Barron Trump. Fair is fair." This sentiment was echoed across various platforms, with many people arguing that presidential children should be off limits, especially when they have not voluntarily stepped into the political arena. Meanwhile, Barron's decision to take the high road only further solidified the growing respect he was earning from the public. Some supporters even began drawing comparisons to past figures known for their quiet strength, noting that true leadership is often demonstrated in how one responds to adversity. At the same time, conservative media seized the moment as an opportunity to highlight what they saw as hypocrisy within liberal journalism. They argued that while many on the left had been quick to defend the children of Democratic presidents, they seemed far less willing to extend the same courtesy to Barron. This fueled heated debates on talk shows, podcasts, and online forums, with many questioning whether the media applies double standards based on political affiliation. In response to the growing backlash, Reynolds attempted to issue an apology, but it fell flat. Instead of taking full responsibility, he framed his comment as a misunderstanding, saying, "I never intended to offend anyone, least of all Barron Trump. I was making an observation, not an attack." However, by that point, the damage had already been done, and few were willing to accept his explanation. Some of the most surprising reactions came from individuals who had previously been outspoken critics of the Trump family. Even they felt that Reynolds had crossed a line. One liberal commentator stated, "I don't agree with Trump's politics at all, but I also don't believe in dragging someone into the fray when they've done nothing to deserve it. Barron is just a young man trying to live his life." This unexpected wave of support for Barron was something few had predicted. While his father, Donald Trump, has always been a polarizing figure, Barron has largely been seen as an unknown entity, a private person navigating an extraordinary set of circumstances. Despite all the chaos, one thing became abundantly clear. Barron Trump had demonstrated a level of composure and restraint that many adults, especially those in politics and media, could learn from. His decision to avoid unnecessary drama and let his actions speak louder than words left an impression on many. By choosing not to engage in a public feud, he showed a level of wisdom beyond his years. As the news cycle eventually moved on, Barron remained silent, never acknowledging the controversy beyond his initial statement. And in doing so, he left behind a powerful message. Sometimes the most effective way to handle criticism is not to dignify it with a response. This entire episode served as a reminder that true strength isn't always about fighting back. It's about knowing when to stand tall, let the noise fade, and keep moving forward. Barron Trump, whether intentionally or not, had just given the world a lesson in grace under fire. As the dust settled, people continued to reflect on what had transpired. The media, typically quick to move on to the next controversy, found itself lingering on this story longer than expected. Why? Because Barron Trump had done something rare. In today's hyper-reactive world, he chose silence over spectacle, dignity over drama, and that in itself made headlines. The public, used to seeing loud and aggressive responses in the political sphere, took notice of Barron's measured approach. Many began speculating about what his future might hold. Would he eventually step into the political arena, given his ability to handle scrutiny so effortlessly? Or would he continue to live a more private life, staying away from the media spotlight? Tlaiquri incident also reignited a broader debate about the treatment of public figures' children. In the past, there had been an unspoken rule in American politics. Presidential children were generally off-limits. Chelsea Clinton was relentlessly mocked as a teenager, but even her critics later admitted it was unfair. The Obama daughters were largely shielded from attacks, with the media condemning any inappropriate commentary about them. But with Barron, it seemed the rules had changed. Political analysts noted that this wasn't the first time Barron had been targeted. Over the years, there had been subtle and not-so-subtle jabs directed his way, often from those who otherwise championed the protection of minors from public scrutiny. This latest attack was simply the most blatant, and it backfired spectacularly. Meanwhile, as the controversy dragged on, Donald Trump himself was noticeably quiet on the issue. Given his reputation for defending his family with aggressive rhetoric, many expected a fiery response. But instead, there was silence. Not just from Barron, but from his father as well. This left people wondering, was this a strategic decision to let Barron handle things his way? Or was it a recognition that Barron's calm and collected approach was far more effective than any Twitter tirade could ever be? Some sources close to the Trump family hinted that Barron has long been known for his composed nature. Unlike his father, who thrives on direct confrontation, Barron is said to be more reserved, choosing his words carefully and avoiding unnecessary conflict. If this was true, then his response, or lack thereof, was not just a one-time moment of maturity, but a reflection of his true personality. In contrast, Reynolds found himself facing mounting consequences. his media outlet reportedly received thousands of complaints, with some advertisers reconsidering their partnerships. Even those who typically defended liberal journalists found it difficult to stand by him this time. Public opinion polls taken in the aftermath of the controversy showed a surprising result. Barron Trump's favorability rating had skyrocketed, even among independents and some left-leaning individuals. People respected the way he handled himself, and many admitted that, regardless of their views on his father, Barron had proven himself to be his own person. Some even speculated that, should he ever decide to step into the public arena, he could carve out a very different path from his father's, one built on quiet strength rather than bombastic rhetoric. For now, though, Barron Trump seems content with staying out of the headlines. While the media continues to speculate about his future, he remains focused on his own life, ignoring the noise and continuing forward. And perhaps, in today's world of constant conflict and outrage, that is the most powerful statement of all. In the end, this entire episode served as a stark reminder. Class, dignity, and restraint still matter. And sometimes, the most shocking response isn't an outburst, but a refusal to engage in pettiness at all.